Welcome everybody to Unsheathed Sword Reviews. I'm John.
I'm Vic.
And today we are here to review the Sterling Armory two-handed lightsaber. Falchion, made by Chris Fields.
It's basically a lightsaber.
Yeah, it kind of
Spoilers.
It's great. You should buy it. I guess we're done, right?
Hey, thanks for watching.
Cool,
like and subscribe. Peace.
See you later. So why don't you tell me a little bit about this sword, Vic? Because I know you purchased it, and it's sort of like a one of a kind almost, isn't it?
It is basically. So, okay, if you don't know who Sterling Armory is, we'll link to their Facebook page. Will be in the description below. That's basically the best place you could get a hold of them and see all their work and stuff like that. So Sterling Armory is three people. It is Chris Fields, who made this sword. It is Joshua Warbear. I forget his last name, but he goes by Warbear. He's awesome. And then it is Colton. And Colton Mag, I believe, is his name. So they all kind of have their unique stylings and their unique maker's mark and their kind of stuff. Chris goes for more historical sword designs and basically something that would have existed in history. As far as I know, Colton and Joshua, they and Warbear, I'm going to call them, they make really, really good swords, but a little bit more of like fantasy-inspired aesthetic to it, right? Yeah. If you're interested in a lot more of these types of swords from Sterling Armory, from Chris specifically, check out Alien Tude's channel. He has a bunch of reviews from them. He's like the biggest Sterling Armory connoisseur out there right now. Mm-hmm. You know, Matthew Jensen has a couple too. Watching those videos from the two of them is what got me really, really interested in getting one of these pieces. Because as Kyle, Alien Tude, said, there's something special about Chris's swords. There's something that you just feel them and you pick them up, and if you know, you know. And I can 100% second that now. So the thing that's also kind of cool about all of them is they don't make any specific models. They don't take custom orders, really. They literally just make stuff and post it online, kind of similar to Angus Trim, except Angus Trim makes specific models that he makes. These guys really don't do that. They just make something and then post it for sale, or they go to conventions. They go to like Combat Con, things like that, and they'll have a booth, right?
Yep. So
that's who Sterling Armory is. You guys should definitely check out their Facebook page. And what we have in front of us here is a two-handed falchion.
So let's start out with the aesthetics of this. I am personally floored by the aesthetics of this piece. I think it has a sort of utilitarian but refined look to it that really speaks to me. I generally prefer a less refined fit and finish. So this would be at the top end to what I would ever need to be happy in a sword. Mm-hmm. And to me, it does a great job of doing that without sacrificing anything for function. So I think it sets out to make a historically plausible sword that if you were to run into people of this time and place, they could definitely have a sword that would look like this. And it's just a masterfully accomplished one in terms of aesthetics. I really enjoy it quite a lot.
I agree completely with what John just said. The aesthetics of it are really unique, even more so unique than most falchions. So if you don't know, falchions and messers, they share a blade typology called the Elmsley typology. Falchions, there's not a whole lot of surviving examples of them. And to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong in the comics, I don't think there are any surviving examples of two-handed falchions, although they are depicted in medieval artwork.
Tons of medieval artwork.
So, but even those don't have a blade that looks exactly like this. There are some Kriegsmessers, historical examples, that have blades that are very, very similar to this. So it is, like John said, very historically plausible that there would be two-handed falchions with this style of blade. And as much as I like a legit one-for-one replica of a sword, I also like historically plausible swords. Definitely, those are also really, really cool. Yep. So in terms of the aesthetics, very, very unique and really different from anything that's on the market. And again, I think it looks fantastic. I really, really like the design of the sword as a whole. Kyle, when he handled this at SoCal, said that it basically was a hand-and-a-half falchion, and I definitely agree with that. Yeah. I love the grip. The shape of it is fantastic, great for indexing. The green color is really, really striking, and I like it a lot. The seam you can see with the eye, but it's not really noticeable. Thing to note, the guard and the pommel are stainless steel, which I freaking love. They look good, and they won't really rust so much. The look of the sword as a whole, especially like this top part right here, it has a really, really fat ricasso, which I love, but then it like clips down and thins out on the blade. And I don't know if it's going to show up on camera so much here, but I will show close-up images. It's a very striking sword, aesthetically.
And as you were speaking, that was the word I was going to use to it, is that it's just striking to look at. The really, really high polish on the fittings looks amazing. Combined with the almost satin finish on the blade, I think it looks fantastic. I really, really like wheel pommels, and I like wheel pommels with a cutout like that on it that's actually squared in rather than like rounded in or something. I just genuinely enjoy the wheel pommel on this, and I really like on the Quillins at the end it has like a line of detail. You put that on the close, it's like kind of right here. You can't see it so well on camera, but we'll put close-ups, and it's like it doesn't need to be there. It serves no functional purpose, but it aesthetically it draws the eye, and it's like wow, that's it's just a pretty sword, and it's also a big sword. Yeah. I mean, it is 41 inches overall, so you don't miss this when it's hanging on your wall, especially between the shiny fittings, the bright green, and the size. It's just aesthetically, it's a gorgeous looking sword.
Agreed with everything John said.
Yeah.
So aesthetically, we like the look of it. In terms of fit and finish, noted the price on this was $1,130 So high-end sword.
Yeah, by every definition of the word.
Do we think that the fit and finish matches that price point?
Absolutely, I do. Yes. I think you could make an argument that it's maybe not quite as polished of a fit and finish as an Albion would be. I would put this at like the Gus Trim level, maybe a little higher than the Gus Trim.
When I first got it, I texted John because he asked about that. I was like, you know what? I think it's right in the middle between an Angus Trim and an Albion. Yeah. Which is a huge compliment because those are like well-made swords.
Definitely. You know, and I think maybe the thing that makes it a little bit more, a little higher up than an A-Trim is it's less standardized. Right. You know, I think it feels like it's got a little bit more individuality to it. So for me, I would put it straight between those two as far as fit and finish. There's not one thing that I can look at and be like, that shouldn't be there for this price point. I can't think of any one thing at all on it.
I will say, nitpick, for the price point, the peen is a little rough. It's a very well done peen, but you do see some hammer marks, some scuffing. You can kind of clip a fingernail under it just a little bit. Not a deal breaker by any means, but at this price point, I wouldn't mind it being a little cleaned up. However,
pause for effect.
Thank you, T. It completely makes up for that with the fit of the guard into the blade. So I know a lot of you guys probably don't care about that. I know that there are many surviving examples. Probably most surviving examples don't really have tight fits to the guard. But as we've talked about before with modern manufacturing processes, you can't get a tight fit in there most of the time. And as we go up in price range, that's one thing that I like to be tighter. This is the tightest fit that I have ever seen personally on a sword.
It's tight like a toy.
It's tight like a toiger. And I have some tight fitting guards out there, and this blows them out of the water. This is literally like my new high bar in terms of like that. It's fucking insane. So yeah.
Well, and that completely makes sense though, because you're not mass producing pommels and mass producing blades and then fitting them together. Right. Because no two blades are exactly the same. No two guards are going to be exactly the same. So when you make one guard for one blade and then fit it perfectly by grinding it out, test fitting, grinding it out, test fitting, this is what you get, and this is what you pay for.
And an awesome consequence or byproduct of that is this. It rings like a freaking bell, and that is awesome.
Agreed.
So, aesthetically and fit and finish, we think it's good. John, how does it handle?
Well, as you may have heard earlier in the video, I did refer to it as a lightsaber, and I think that is pretty accurate, actually. It is obscenely sharp. Like you don't need a sword to be any sharper than this.
I wish every sword came this sharp.
It would be amazing. It's just unparalleled in my ability to land a cut exactly where I want it with exactly the amount of force that I want. I feel like it's maybe the liveliest, not liveliest, that's the wrong word. Maybe the sword that I've handled that feels the best to me right off the bat. Like it just feels like I know exactly what to do with it. So to me, it's like some motorcycles are really easy to ride. I feel like this is probably a really easy sword to look good with. So yeah, I think handling is absolutely ridiculous.
Agreed.
It doesn't sacrifice authority for liveliness, which I appreciate, but it is definitely livelier than other falchions that we've reviewed recently. So there's that sweet spot. I think this might be a little bit lighter and faster than a real true falchion should be, but I really like the way it moves around.
Agreed. So at 2 pounds 14 ounces, it's not a necessarily light sword, but it's not a particularly heavy sword either.
Particularly for two hands.
Yeah, and it's kind of mind blowing because again, it has a really fat ricasso, which I love. So you could easily wield this one-handed, especially when you're wrapping the finger around the guard. Yep. It feels like a one-handed sword when you do that.
Agreed.
Then if you put two hands on it, it's a lightsaber, as John said. It is utterly ridiculous, the agility and the speed and the confidence that this sword inspires. Again, neither one of us have done any kind of HEMA training. We don't know what we're doing. I put this in the hands of my girlfriend, And the maniacal look of pure joy and murder on her face was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, so as John said, you could put this in a hand and like make anybody look good. Mm-hmm. Yes, strongly agree. A lot of that probably has to do with the distal taper. It has fantastic distal taper, starting out at 6.6 millimeters at the base is what we measured, down to about 3.2. It is incredibly wieldable and lively sword that still, like you said, has authority to it. It's pretty mind-blowing how this feels in your hand.
Yep. So you told me, as we can now transition into overall value, you told me that I believe Kyle said to you that something about Chris's swords is just special.
Yes.
I agree with that. And now I am not a person that buys a lot of high-end swords. Vic has markedly more high-end swords than I do. I feel like the only thing I've talked about with the level of like reverence and love that I have for this is the Ansbach sword. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? You spend a lot of money on this sword at $1,130, but I feel like you know exactly where every dollar of that went. Mm-hmm. Like this sword is just really, really, really excellent. I think it is worth the money. Now, with that said, you never need to spend $1,100 on a sword to be happy. You shouldn't watch this video and be like, oh, well, I can never collect swords because I can't afford an $1,100 sword. It's completely normal not to be able to afford that, and that's completely fine. However, if you do have the money for it, it's definitely worth it. I feel like I know where every dollar on this sword went, and I'm here for it.
Strongly agree with everything that John just said. We are not about gatekeeping here, and there are plenty of good swords in the budget range or mid-range that we're going to be looking at to give you guys lots of options on how to spend your money. If you can spend $1,130, if you can save up for it, then yeah. The problem is you can't just go buy this. However, I will say follow Sterling Armory on Facebook, and if any of their swords come up and you like the look of them, I can say emphatically that they will be worth the money. I'm going to buy more Sterling Armory swords, which is kind of annoying because I didn't need another high-end maker to just pursue like I'm an insane person. So like I'm going to buy more because I truly believe they're worth it. They don't really have the presence and notoriety that like I believe they should have. I want more people to know about them and buy more. Except that they could probably start charging more, because if this were a $1,500 sword, I'd get it. So like it's not that expensive. Yeah. But definitely I think it's worth it.
I completely agree. And I think you make a good point that like this sword maker and like Angus Trim, you kind of have to be a psycho and stalk them if you want to get any of their swords, because they hit the market and it's like, boom, gone.
Yeah.
Like, yep. Oh, sorry, too late. 5 people already tried to buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but even with that said, I do think it's worth it. And it would not surprise me at all if in 3 or 4 years, these are $1,500-$1,600 swords.
Yeah. One thing that Angus Trim, actually, he posted talking about, I think it was the Falchions that Colton made. He picked them up, looked at the distal taper, looked at the handling, and like guessed the price and thought they were severely underpriced.
Yeah, like 20 to 30% underpriced at least.
He said he would not be surprised if these were significantly more expensive in the next few years as more people find out about them. And deservedly so. They're making fantastic products. I'm going to try to get in now where they're a little bit cheaper.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, it's a firm thumbs up for me.
Yes, fantastic sword. Buy anything from them if you can. So
absolutely.
That's all I got, John. You got anything else?
No, just as we've mentioned in the last couple of videos, we're going to be doing some more interaction in our comments, and we're going to be posting polls about what stuff you want to see next in terms of swords we have to review. We also have a couple of manufacturers that reached out to us and are going to send us some review samples, so we're looking forward to that coming up. And also, one of the things that's happened recently that's been really cool is people have asked questions or made observations in the comments that have prompted entire lines of conversation that we would never have had otherwise. Mm-hmm. So please, if you're sitting there thinking like, hey, why didn't you ask this? Or why didn't you talk about that? Mm-hmm. It's going to help us get better. So please put it in the comments, and we will be happy to discuss it, talk about it, whatever comes up. So
yeah. And not only will it help us get better, but also like we're here for you guys. This is why we're doing this, to help give you guys information. So if there's things you want to know, let us know, and we will talk about it and discuss it and show whatever we need to for that.
Yeah. And like, honestly, if you point out something that we missed, we're not even against doing like an addendum review to something where we can say, hey, user 123XYZ said this, that, and the other thing we should have mentioned that we didn't. Thank you for that feedback.
Agreed. Yep.
So yeah. With that said, that's about all I have. If this was your first stop off at the channel, thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you back.
Yep. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications.
Peace.